doomed to stand alone in defense of the Elara's Veil Nebula, Segmentum Ultima. The Emperor's spears are a chapter of turbulent internal tensions. Civilized barbarians, shining azure angels of the Emperor, whose own tribespeople mourn and shun them. Ultramarine successors, yet eschewers of the Codex Astartes. Fiercely proud and sanguine of their inevitable fate, yet masters of crude humor and self-deprecation. At one moment consumed with the joy of close quarters combat, the next singing dirges as they eviscerate the foe with holy bolt rounds. The Emperor's spears hail from the ocean world of Nemeton, which is cut off from the light of the Astronomicon by the Great Rift, a fact that the Battle Brothers of the Spears consider an omen of their abandonment by the Imperium at large. Tithed from among the primitive tribes of Nemeton, who consider the perpetual rainfall of their homeworld to be an object of worship, the chapter's superstitions are perhaps unsurprising. They gain greater credence when the broader plight of Elara's Veil is considered, however. Where once 3 noble Astartes chapters stood as sentinels of the Veil, now only the spears contend for the freedom of the sector against the forces of the arch-enemy, the Exilarchy, and their heretic Astartes overlords, the self-acclaimed Pure. These heretics add mockery to the spear's injury, sporting in their heraldry the same colors as the Star Scorpions, formerly stalwart brothers in arms to the sons of Nemeton. Though the Celestial Lions remain to aid the spears, their ranks have been woefully decimated by centuries of warfare and interference from the Ordos of the Inquisition. With the threat of utter destruction by the forces of chaos looming ever larger over the storm-tossed homeworld of Nemeton, the Emperor's spears can only hope to achieve glory by pitting themselves in the heart of the battle. Foot soldiers of the Exilarchy quake with terror when they hear the first rumblings of the spear's battle chant. Skovakara ul Tsarun.
Greetings nerds and well met. My name is Matt and I am a huge fan of the Emperor's Spears. Like many a Nemeton enjoyer, I first encountered the spears through the demski-bowden novel Spear of the Emperor, which is just fantastic. That was my gateway into the Emperor's Spears. I love the chapter, I love their lore, I love the mix of civility and barbarism that they display. And I think for Space Marines, they display a level of humility and even humanity that many Space Marine chapters entirely lose. What you're seeing at the moment is the first 1,000 points of my Emperor Spears army. This consists of 3 5-man squads of assault intercessors, 1 10-man squad of regular intercessors, a squad of 5 stern guard, and then a whole bunch of characters. 2 druids, a librarian and a chaplain, a company champion, a chapter ancient, a lieutenant and an apothecary. With 10th edition beginning and new Terminator models on the horizon, my intention for expanding this force towards 2,000 points will be lots of Terminators, inland raiders, and probably a dreadnought or 2. My force, according to the official Emperor's Spears Discord server, are the 12th war host of Nemeton. They are the Highlanders. As someone who has a mixture of Welsh and Scottish heritage myself, I really appreciate the Celtic vibes that the Emperor's Spears carry with them. My headcanon for these chaps is that they are defenders of Nemeton itself. They're the people that High King Arakatus is holding, not exactly in reserve. They still go out and engage in defense of the Vale itself, but they will be called back if Nemeton itself is threatened. This shows essentially all of the models that I have fully painted at present, which is about 500 points worth of my 1,000 points. I'm a very slow painter. I try to do each one as an individual model and put some love into it as I go, but that does mean that I'm very slow, besides the fact that I'm a methodical and slow painter anyway. I also love to kit bash and convert my models ever so slightly just to help them to feel unique. One of the things that I'm a real fan of doing with my intercessors is using assault intercessor bodies. You can see a couple of my conversions here, or simple conversions, and all you do is just very carefully shave off the tacit armour that goes at the waist, the hips, and then shave that back. And I usually don't even bother shaving it too carefully, because I'll then cover it with pouches and other things so that the waist looks fairly clean after a spray coat of black. You wouldn't even notice it. But I love using some of the running legs because they just give that extra element of dynamism, and I think that's something that the Emperor's Spears quite well embody. They're supposed to be masters of deployment and rapid redeployment, so I like having that sense of movement to the models. My plan with this video is certainly not to do a full painting guide, because I'm no great painter. I'm still very much learning that side of the hobby. However, my recipe for the Emperor's Spears iconic heraldry is ever so slightly different to other ones that appear online, so I thought I would just share that here for the benefit of anyone that might want to give it a try. I begin by spraying all of my models with Tabletop Combat Black Spectre. I'm sure there are better ones out there. There are probably worse ones out there. I don't really know or care. It does a good enough job of coating well and not clogging up any detail. Basically, my intention with this scheme was to avoid using washes on the armour. I didn't want to do the classic base coat wash layer highlight. I wanted to try and challenge my own painting and do this with just layers. And so I begin with a base coat of Night Lord's Blue. I'm thinning this down and ensuring that it is a nice even coat and that it is getting into all of the nooks and crevices, so that will be my shade colour when the layers go on the top. I then follow that up with 2 or 3 thin coats of Hoeth Blue as my kind of mid-tone. Definitely am avoiding the recesses there, so that I get a fairly crisp division between the shadowy areas and the mid-tone. From there, I then do a 50-50 mix or thereabouts of Hoeth Blue and Fenrisian Grey, and that provides a covering probably on 90% of all the panels. I just miss out the bottom areas of certain panels to add a little bit of tonal variation. And then after that, it is pure Fenrisian Grey as a fairly sketchy, fat edge highlight. I then use Abaddon Black and Fenrisian Grey again to put in some simple battle damage. I know the spears are meant to be known for keeping their armour quite shiny, but I like my guys having a bit of damage on them, so that's what I do. In terms of the white elements of the armour, helmets, some shoulder pads, and I also do the central circular section on the power packs on the back in white as well for some of my characters. I use 2 thin coats of Ulthuan Grey as my base. I then wash, kind of pin wash almost around the edges with non-oil, or in the case of helmets, a fairly good coverage all over. I then go back over that with the Ulthuan Grey again and follow that up with an edge highlight of White Scar. Painting metallics is one of the things that I find most tedious about painting. It's very simple. I use lead belcher, I cover that with non-oil, and then lead belcher again, and Stormhost Silver as an edge highlight. And the gold elements are Retributor Armour with an Agrax wash, Retributor Armour again, and then Stormhost Silver as an edge highlight. Simple as that. Any of the other elements I use are absolutely not unique to me. They're things that I've learned mostly from watching other people's videos. But as is the case for so many people in recent years, I think, this Emperor's Spears Force was my reintroduction to the 40k hobby after about 15 years or so. So I wanted to push myself as much as possible with the painting and relearning those skills. And one of the things that I used to do that was freehanding. Every single chapter badge, every single rune, every single banner, I'm aiming to do freehand. Now that's partly just because I'm a cheapskate and I don't want to shell out for custom decals and all that sort of thing. but also I wanted to push myself and challenge myself a little bit. And as you can see, it does sometimes work out. So I want to encourage you, if you're considering giving freehanding a go, be patient with yourself, give yourself time. Remember that you can always paint over things. As long as you're painting with thin layers, it's going to be fine. And you can end up with some stunning results. There are some things like the Manticora Bestia Fidelitas that I put onto this Chapter Ancients banner, which I did not expect to come out half as well as it did. I'm sure there are improvements that could be made. I'm sure there are ways that it could be done better. But for a first attempt at doing something like this, I am really happy with it. So I just want to encourage you, give these things a go, because it is doable, even for mere mortals that are nothing like the standard of those we see online. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope that you found my homage to the Emperor Spears and to my Highlanders specifically enjoyable. If you did, then please do give it a like and perhaps drop a comment down below saying which army you collect or would like to collect, or which books have really inspired you to get into your hobby again. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time.
Do not forget, brothers, to rend the earth.